adjusting your schedules and moving this virtually with our wonderful Northwestern PA weather that we are having. I am going to let Colleen kind of kick it off. She's with PA CareerLink. She has a presentation, and then Kathy, she's going to go over WEDnetPA and all that it has to offer. And then at the end or during it, we can have a question session. So Colleen, it's all for you.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Lindsay. I'm Colleen Chamberlain. I'm the site administrator here at the PA CareerLink, Lawrence County. And I want to thank our team over at Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce, especially Lindsay and Melanie, for putting all this together. Their coordination is vital to getting these Noontime Knowledges up and running. So thanks again for that. And I am sorry that you all can't be here in our office today to tour our wonderful new facility. We've been here 2 years, a little over 2 years now, but I know a lot of you haven't had a chance to see our offices here in the central building. So darn PA weather, that's the way it works around here in Pennsylvania. So I want to just do a quick overview of what we do here at the PA CareerLink and how we can help our businesses and customers in Lawrence County offset some training costs so they can take a different way of looking at training and hiring, because we all know that recruitment and retention is difficult right now. Every employer across the United States is having problems finding people. So we need to look at a different way of how we hire our people and what can we do to make sure that we're getting the right person for the job. So why do I know what I'm talking about? Just real quick introduction of me. I have over 25 years of experience in human resources, over 20 years in recruiting, and over 15 years in training. So when I start talking about why we need to change our processes, I think it's important that our human resources departments, our recruiting departments, whoever it is that's doing the hiring for our companies, understands that it's more than just putting people in place. It really needs to be a different focus, especially considering the changes that have occurred over the last several years. So I think it's time for us to rethink hiring. It's not new. Pre-pandemic we actually started to see a hiring crunch. It was very difficult at that point, even in 2017 and 2018, for employers to find people and for employers to find qualified people. Some employers during that time period started looking at different ways to recruit, and they're the ones who have been successful through the pandemic and beyond. The competition for workers continues to be stiff. So it's important that companies are rethinking the way that they recruit and retain employees. Over the course of the last several years and through the pandemic, we have lost 4.3 million workers in the labor force. That's a lot. As you can see from this graph, there's 10.1 million jobs open right now, but only 5.8 million people in the labor force to fill them. So we have a lot of work to do. So how do you, the employer, find those employees to fill your open positions over the other employers who are trying to do the same? And what we're finding is that there's a mismatch in what the job seekers are looking for versus what the employers are trying to attract. So employers, if they rethink the way that they do their recruiting, can hire for potential instead of perfection. I worked in manufacturing for over 20 years. And one of the things that I found out of our supervisors who were doing the hiring was they always wanted to find that perfect employee, the one who had all the right skill set, the one who had all the right soft skills, the one who would come to work and they would do the job and they would follow directions and they would always do it all the time, always correct. It's never going to happen. So if we hired for the person who had the ability to learn and the person who had the willingness to learn, we can teach them the hard skills. And a lot of times we can teach them the soft skills too. So looking for that person who fits into your organization instead of the perfect employee would really help with your recruiting efforts. So looking at some of the statistics that are on this page, some of the ones that really struck out to me, 77% of recruiters go back and hire a candidate who at first didn't appear to be a fit. Think about that. 23% of the fit employees got hired on the first try, 77%, they went back and found somebody else who didn't seem to be a perfect fit the first time around. 66% of companies will train and hire candidates who may be lacking in skills but have potential. 2/3 of employers have changed the way they look at it. That was back in 2018. That number needs to be higher. The top challenges driving HR technology decisions in organizations. Second one is developing people to reach their full potential. 43% of employers find that a challenge. And that's something that we need to start looking at, potential instead of perfection. How do we develop our people so that we can retain them? Because according to our job seekers, 1/3 of job seekers say that professional development is an important consideration in accepting a new job. 1/3. So they're looking for you to invest in them. And career opportunity is the #1 reason for changing jobs. That's an important statistic. Why are people moving from employer to employer? Because there's an opportunity. And that opportunity usually has to do with somebody who's willing to invest in their potential. Organizations, though, not on the same page. Almost 66% of organizations have a priority of building talent pools for the future, but don't put succession planning high on the list. Succession planning, only 34% of organizations' priorities. If you want to attract and retain employees, you have to put money into them. Succession planning is important because that helps you identify those employees who have the potential and need you to invest in their future. So going forward, what's going to be important? Training and development is going to be an essential strategy going forward in order to attract and retain employees. That's what employees are looking for. Employees have a lot of choices right now. They don't have to come work for you. If you are willing to invest in them, in their potential, instead of perfection, you're going to be higher on their list. Candidates with the ability and willingness to learn can offer a much larger recruitment pool for you than those with the perfect skill set. Don't take them out of the mix just because they don't have the hard skills. You can train people on hard skills. Non-traditional candidates can also increase your recruitment pool. Individuals who have disabilities, maybe you make a few accommodations. You can increase your talent pool very quickly by just including that demographic. Reentrants, those with a criminal record. How important is that criminal record? If you can waive some of those requirements, you've just opened up a whole new talent pool. Substance abuse disorders, same thing. If it's not a requirement for the job that they don't have that in their background, maybe you're eliminating people based on something that you could add them to your talent pool. So let's talk now about some ways that we can offset those costs. Now that you understand that if you're focusing on potential versus perfection, we understand you're going to have to spend a little bit more money to get them up to where you need them to be. Well, that's where PA CareerLink and BC3, our WEDnet program, can help you offset some of those training costs. So I'm going to go over some of our programs very quickly, 30,000-foot high-level overview. If you want more information, we have our contact information at the end of this slideshow. You'll be able to contact us for more information. So these are just some of the programs available through the PA CareerLink. There's a lot more here. These are the ones that are top-notch and high-level and easy for us to review for you. So the first one is on-the-job training. This is going to provide an employer with a wage reimbursement of up to 50% of the employee's wages for up to 26 weeks. The key is that as the employer, you must be a registered employer with PA CareerLink. You do have to sign an OJT contract for on-the-job training, and you'll invoice us at the PA CareerLink through West Central Job Partnership for the wage reimbursements that you're looking to get. The key for this one is the candidate. The candidate must be eligible and meet all of our eligibility requirements. They must be registered here with the PA CareerLink. It's a free registration for them, free registration for our employers as well. But they have to be approved for the program before they start work for you. So this is not a program that's eligible for incumbent employees. This one is for brand new hires, and they have to go through the screening process here at the CareerLink first before their start date. You can hire them, just don't get them started before you talk to us about the OJTs. We also have what's known as paid work experience and youth programs. So these are adults or youth ages 16 through 24 for the youth programs, adult programs ages 18 and up. And these can help you offset your costs for people who maybe have some barriers to employment, or they need some additional hand-holding and training to get them up to speed. The candidates must be registered and participating in one or more of our approved programs through the PA CareerLink system. Obviously, they must meet our eligibility requirements. But here's the key for you. West Central, the operators of the CareerLink here in Lawrence and Mercer counties, we pay the candidates wages during their employment with you. Now, you always have the option, if you really enjoy having them as an employee, to hire them on after they're done with the program, but we will pay their wages to get them up and running. There are some hour restrictions, maximum number of hours per week, maximum number of hours that West Central will pay. But after that, they can be your employee on your payroll. What you do during this reimbursement or during this subsidized employment period is host the candidate. You'll have the option to choose the candidate you want and then provide them with the training, the mentoring, and guidance during their employment. Put enough into them for a return on investment, hire them full time, you've got yourself a trained employee ready to go. We also offer internships. This is a seasonal program, not always available, and usually available in some different concepts, just depends on the requirements for that year. Again, the candidates must be registered and participating in one or more of our approved programs through CareerLink and must meet certain eligibility requirements. We will reimburse the employer, though, up to 75% of the intern's wages. The job does have to pay at least $10.35 an hour. Pay more, great. You're still going to get 75% of that reimbursed, but it does have to be at least $10.35 an hour, and we'll reimburse that up to 300 hours. Again, the employer gets to choose the candidate. You'll host the candidate and provide training, mentoring, and guidance during the employment. I'm going to take a break for just a second. Does anybody have any questions before I move on?
Yeah, Colleen, on that internship, those employees have to be pre-approved for your program before?
Yes, they do.
On board? Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the pre-approval process is very simple. They come down, they meet with one of our employment and training specialists. We go through their eligibility, and then once they're put into the program, then if you're looking for internships, we would reach out to you.
Colleen, I'm going to interrupt you too real quick. I sent out handouts yesterday to everyone. And if you happen to not receive them, if you want to put your email in the chat, I can send that over to you, along if you don't mind, Colleen, sharing the PDF of the presentation. Yes, absolutely. So I did make some changes to it from yesterday. So I apologize if you got the old version and not the new version. So I didn't send out the okay. PowerPoint yet, just the handouts you sent me. All right, very good. Okay, no other questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on.
I have a question, sorry.
Go ahead, Brittany.
Does the candidate's residency matter, or just the employer location, or both?
It will depend on the program. So some programs do have residency requirements for the candidate. Some programs are for both counties, Lawrence and Mercer. Some programs will cover multiple areas like the OPEN region. So it just depends on the program, which is why we ask that they come through us first before hire. And that way we can determine their eligibility. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry, Brittany, did you have something else?
I just said thank you.
I can answer that a little more detailed. So for paid work experience, it 100% has to be in either Lawrence or Mercer County. Chances are, if they're not a Lawrence or County resident or Mercer County resident, as long as the employer is based in Lawrence or Mercer County, they can probably do an OJT or an internship. The internship funding streams change year to year, so sometimes there's some restrictions, but I haven't learned of any right now for the current program year.
Thank you, Matt. All right, moving on. So apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships, these would be registered programs through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And for those of you who aren't aware, apprenticeships aren't just union apprenticeships. So they've really opened up what can be a registered apprenticeship in Pennsylvania and throughout the United States. These are structured training programs that incorporate both classroom, related technical instruction, and hands-on training, and can go anywhere from a computer programmer or an IT specialist to your common craft trades, masonry, carpentry, electricians, the ones that we think of when we think of apprenticeships. But there's a lot more that's out there now that's available. So there are, if you put in an apprenticeship or a pre-apprenticeship program, there are subsidized wage reimbursement programs that are available to help you offset the cost of implementing the program, as well as sustaining your program. Programs that are registered through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania are also eligible for additional training and tuition reimbursement funds. So your related technical instruction could be eligible for up to $8,000 in tuition reimbursement for your employee who goes into that apprenticeship program. They do focus on high priority occupations. So if you are thinking about an apprenticeship program, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to check and make sure that the occupation that you're looking to do an apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship for is an HPO. If it's not, we can actually petition the state if we find that there's enough reason for it to be added to the high priority occupation list. Veterans programs and the Work Opportunity Tax Credit are available through the PA CareerLink. Again, the candidate should be pre-approved through the program. That's not to say that there aren't programs out there, especially for veterans, that would cover incumbent workers. This is why we want you to reach out to us. We'll be happy to look at the eligibility. But that candidate who's a veteran or eligible for the Work Opportunity Tax Credit would work with a career advisor here at our office to determine their eligibility. The tax credits are for the employers. So your candidate for employment or your incumbent worker might not bring this to your attention, but please check with us to see about that Work Opportunity Tax Credit. That's for the employer only. It has nothing to do with the employee. If they're a veteran, and veteran can be anywhere from somebody who served 1 day in the military all the way up to somebody who retired as a full-blown colonel or a 4-star general. So there is a priority of service for veterans that comes through our office, and the programs can provide assistance with everything from housing or health and mental health care, transportation, helping them with a disability to find or retain work and make accommodations. We can help them with job placement and workforce development, so helping them write a resume, helping them transition from military to civilian employment. And as the employer, we can help you too. We understand that there's a lot of stuff that goes on a military resume that people in the civilian sector really don't understand what it means. And so we can help you understand what that military resume means when you get it in your hands as well. Tuition reimbursement programs are available. So if you're sending your employees back to school for whatever it might be, check with us first to see if that schooling and that employee could be eligible for tuition reimbursement monies. Most apprenticeships, there's some eligibility there. If you're sending them back for additional training, if it's a high priority occupation through an approved training provider and approved training program, we may be able to offset those costs for you if you have a tuition reimbursement program as well through your employment. Or if you're requiring that employee to go back to school, again, potential versus perfection, get them upskilled, we might be able to help you offset some of those training costs. And this program for the tuition reimbursement can be used in conjunction with our other programs. So please feel free to reach out to us. Let's figure out if they're eligible for this. We want you to hire people. We want you to be able to improve your pool of candidates as well. And we want you to upskill your incumbent workers. One way that you can do that is actually free now through PA CareerLink. So we have this new program, it's called Skill Up PA. It's all online. It's available for free for registered participants with PA CareerLink. So this wouldn't be done necessarily through the employer, but your employees can register with PA CareerLink. There's over 5,000 online learning courses, everything from teaching them how to type, which how many of you have employees that work that are two-finger hunt and peck, right? They can learn how to touch type online during their lunch period. Everything up to prep courses for certifications. For instance, I have my senior professional in human resources certification. The prep course for me to sit for that certification is a $750 prep course. It's free on Skill Up PA. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there. They do have to be a registered user of PA CareerLink, which is free to register. The Skill Up PA program is available for 180 days for free for any online course that's available on there. And it includes everything from customer service courses, management and leadership courses, Microsoft Office, learn more about Word or Excel, and many other business related topics. And these can be used to help upskill your employees. You've got somebody who their performance review says, we want you to go take a conflict management course. It's available free on PA CareerLink. It's available free through the Skill Up PA. All right, there's our contact information. So are there any questions that you might have that I can answer before we pass it off to Kathy Strobel in the WEDnet program? All right. There being no questions, Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Colleen. All right. Good morning. I'm just looking at the clock. It is still morning, I believe. Good morning, everybody. I am Kathy Strobel. I am the coordinator of business training for Butler County Community College. And we provide workforce training to companies in Butler and the surrounding counties that BC3 does business in a variety of different areas. In addition to providing training for your companies and your employees, another role that I serve is as the WEDnet partner, as one of the WEDnet partners for this statewide program. As Colleen talked about a bit, we know the importance of training, obviously both for your employees so that they have the skills that are needed to help you to remain competitive and for you to remain profitable. But then also, as Colleen talked about, in terms of maintaining your employees and keeping them happy, they want to know that there is room for professional development, personal development, growth, and that you're investing in them. Training can sometimes get expensive. Colleen talked a bit about some different programs that are available. I'm going to talk to you about the WEDnet training grant and what some of the requirements are and benefits of this grant for you. So in a nutshell, the goal of the WEDnet training grant is basically to strengthen the businesses here in Pennsylvania. The governor knows that when businesses are profitable, obviously the state benefits from that as well. So what we want is that for our business environment to remain positive, for employees to be skilled so that companies can prosper. And so they have invested in the WEDnet grant for over 20 years now to help that happen. The way that they make that happen is by providing these funds through WEDnet, so that you can train your employees and improve upon their skills. So in a nutshell, the WEDnet training grant provides training for skill building for your employees at a rate of $2,000 per year for an employee, up to a maximum of $100,000 per company. There are a few eligibility requirements that I'll kind of go over real quickly to share with you a little bit about, and then I'll also talk about the types of training and a little bit more about the WEDnet as we get through this here. So there are some requirements for both your company, for the specific employee, and then also for the training that you're going to do. Talking first about the company eligibility. First and foremost, the company has to be located in Pennsylvania. It also has to be in part of an eligible industry cluster, primarily commercial and industrial in nature. But you can also serve, like some residential companies as well. And I have a list on the next slide that talks a little bit about the different industries that are eligible. So I'll get to that in a moment. Additionally, another component of eligibility for companies is that if you participate in this grant, you can participate 2 years in a row, and then you would have to take a year off. Also, over the span of 5 years, you can participate 3 times out of that 5-year period. And that's just basically the way of, making sure that the funding kind of gets spread around a bit. There are some larger companies that potentially could eat up a lot of funding. And so the state wants to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. So talking about company eligibility, this chart here shows you different industry clusters that are eligible, and then also ones that are not eligible. So you can kind of see there going down in terms of the eligible companies. Again, talking to, for the most part, companies, if you are like serve the industry. So if you're industrial in nature, then it would be eligible. Manufacturing, we've got logistics and transportation. For the most part, if you have a question, you can give me a call and I'll let you know. When we talk about healthcare facilities, not all healthcare facilities are eligible. So in the second box there under the eligible industry clusters, it's going to show you those that are eligible. So it's more those ones where you have a need for medical services. So like if there's, hospice service, mental health, assisted living, rehab, that kind of thing, those healthcare facilities would be eligible. Those that are not eligible are more like independent living, your primary care doctor offices, pharmacies would not be, or like other outpatient facilities. So again, any question on eligibility, I'm always here to talk to you. The other asterisk in terms of eligibility deals with banks. So like your local branches are not eligible, but like a bank headquarter office would be eligible for the grant. Some unions are eligible as well. If there's a question about that, you can give me a call. We can kind of talk specifically. In terms of not eligible, the list is there as well. Employment agencies, training providers, education, any brick and mortar retail business is not eligible for the grant. As I mentioned before, branch locations, bank branch locations are not eligible. Additionally, any company that is directly involved in the production or distribution of any type of marijuana is not eligible. Even if it's eligible under Pennsylvania state law, it is not eligible for this grant. In talking about employee eligibility, just like the company has to be located in Pennsylvania, The employee must also be a resident of Pennsylvania and employed in Pennsylvania to be eligible. So you may have some employees that maybe commute from Ohio. They can certainly participate in any training that happens, but when it comes to reimbursing you for the training, they would not be eligible. So for example, if you conducted a training and you had 10 of your employees participate and the training cost you $1,000, the state's going to look at that and say that the cost per employee is $100. If 9 of your employees are Pennsylvania residents and 1 of them is an Ohio resident, the state would reimburse you $900 for that training, and that $100 for the resident that's not a Pennsylvania, the employee that's not a Pennsylvania resident would be incumbent on the company to pay for. And essentially the reason for that is because this is a taxpayer funded initiative from tax dollars. So they reimburse only for Pennsylvania employees. Additionally, at this time, employees must earn at least $12 per hour. That excludes benefits. They have to be a permanent full-time employee and eligible for full-time benefits. They don't necessarily have to take benefits, but they have to be eligible for them. And if you have multiple locations, they would have to be an employee of the specific company and location that was awarded the grant. If you have multiple locations, you can certainly apply for funding through multiple locations. So, you know, that employee could be covered elsewhere as well. Moving on now in terms of training, I'll say there's probably like a little bit less restriction in terms of training, in my opinion, because companies are basically in the driver's seat when it comes to determining the training that's necessary. This training is skill building training. The type of training that companies offer to their employees is going to vary from company to company because your businesses vary. So the type of training that company A needs is going to be different from company B, and BC3 or the state, we're not going to, you know, obviously you guys know your business the best, so you are able to kind of determine the training. The training should be skill building in nature for either their current job or for advancement if you're looking to move them forward. In addition to picking the training that you provide, you are also able to pick the training provider. So while BC3 serves as your partner, you are able to determine and pick any training provider, whether it be a training provider that comes to your facility to offer training, whether you send your employees to training outside, and now even, you know, there's an awful lot of fantastic library and online training that's offered, and that would be eligible as well. So this grant is an annual grant that runs from July 1st through June 30th of the following year. The current grant right now that we're operating under, the 2022-2023 grant, for this year's grant, the training would have had to have started on or after July 1st of 22, and it must be completed before June 30th of 2023. Partial training is not reimbursed. So if, you know, you start the training in May and it doesn't end until July, unfortunately, that training would not be reimbursed at all. So it's important to kind of make sure that when you're planning for WEDnet purposes, if you're looking to get reimbursed, that you definitely meet with it, go within those deadlines. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis throughout the year. So as long as there is funding available, you can always apply to WEDnet. If you should apply now, you can still submit, even if your application is not approved, you know, until like, you know, if you apply now and your application is approved, you know, say like in the beginning of February, you can still retroactively go back and submit for any training that was, as long as it started on or after July 1st of last year. So that's great news as well. So you can even go back and submit for things that happened before you got approved. The
Kathy?
cost for, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, this is Randy Melvin. While you're on this page, I didn't want to lose track.
Absolutely.
I noticed at the bottom, it says on the job training is not eligible, and I'm not quite sure the difference between that and skill building for your current job.
Yep, I will get to that in 1 minute, as soon as we get down there.
Perfect.
Absolutely, thank you. You talked about the cost must be reasonable. Essentially, there are some training providers out there that are very, familiar with WEDnet, and they may, think that they can charge a little bit more because the company's getting reimbursed for it. So like, hey, it's okay if we pad this a little bit because, it's not coming out of your pocket anyway. Also, one thing I'll talk about in terms of reasonable, in terms of cost, sometimes companies will bring in like, nationally known speakers, right? Or trainers, like a nationally known trainer. They're fantastic. They do a great job. They're kind of expensive as well. So the state may look at that and say, you know what, it's great. We think that, we'll reimburse you this amount of it. If you want to go up above and beyond that, then that's going to be on you. I don't really see any problems ever with this, but it is in the guidelines. Apparently they've had problems before. I've never had problems with this with a company. But I always do want to mention it. Every training has to be at least 30 minutes in length. For the most part, nobody's doing trainings that are less than 30 minutes, but that is kind of like the guideline they set. Sometimes if you do online training, some of them are short little snippets. Again, would have to be 30 minutes. In talking about on-the-job training, essentially what the state looks at here is like, so say if you are, a manufacturer of widgets, whatever it is you manufacture, I don't know, automobile tires, right? If your employee is on the production line with you and they're getting trained with you on the job right there, and you're actually producing those tires, and that finished product that employee is getting trained on that you're working on is going to be sold, that is not covered through this grant. If they're on the job and they're like, obviously they're on the job, they're working for you, whatever else, and you're doing training in the training room, or like you have machines and they're just like taking a class in CNC machining, and they're working on the machine, and they're practicing their skill, they're practicing what they're doing, but like whatever they are working on is not part of a finished product, then that would be eligible. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, if you have questions, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all a matter of whether or not you're actually producing something in there. So here's another chart that talks a little bit about some of the types of training topics. By all means, it is not all inclusive. Like I said, everybody's business is different. So, what you might need is different from somebody else's. You might have specific OSHA regulations, food service regulations, specific machinery that your employees need to work on, but it kind of just gives you an idea of the variety of types of training that's eligible. Something to keep in mind, a lot of times when companies first think about WEDnet or training, they think about, everybody that's on the production floor, or everybody is like, that's, in a healthcare industry that's actually like working with the patients that you have at the hospital. But this covers everybody. It'll cover all of your office staff. It covers, the folks that are on the floor. If you've got, a warehouse, individuals there, if you've got drivers that work for you full time. So there really is a wide variety. If you have a question about anything, as long as it's skill building and it works towards for their specific position or advancement, then it would be eligible. So like I said, I mean, there's probably, you could probably think off the top of your head, like 15 or 20 additional workplace health and safety things that could go in there. Your human resource department, they may have specific things about interviewing, hiring, diversity, anything like that. Folks in your accounting or finance department may have things about, new laws or something that are going into place for your industry or whatever. So this is definitely just an example of some of the training topics that would be eligible.
Hey, Kathleen, this is Paul. Is there any way that you could perhaps provide, instead of, you talked about a lot of what's eligible and what isn't eligible, but do you have 4 or 5 maybe case studies without divulging any confidentialities of successful companies that did this, so that would maybe provide a little more of a understanding of how this could be done creatively?
Done creatively, and what are you talking? I'm not
Like
following.
actually real world examples of successful WEDnet programs, and very specific about what several companies did to make it happen. Because I think a lot of times it's a little more theoretical, but if you have some real world examples / case studies, that might assist some of the employers in processing of this a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, we work with companies that are anything from, smaller electrical, like we'll call them contracting companies, that provide industrial services to like companies, not residential, and they may have something that, a train they're looking to send their guys to on like the most, I don't have the training plans in front of me right now to remember all of their training, but like, so small, we'll call them more like mom and pop style companies. I've got some that are construction, some that are engineering, some that are, like I said, electrical, then even like bigger manufacturers, on the machinery that they may have. I mean, it really just depends. Every company's training plan is just completely different. The thing when I start to work with a company, what I suggest that they do is, we'll sit down and talk about it, is that they talk with the managers in the various departments within their organization, and let them know that this grant is available, that they may have some money available to send their employees to training, and that they then talk to them about, a lot of times, individuals are sending the employees within their department to training anyway. So that's there. If they're not, then they can start looking at things that maybe like we're on the wish list that we would love to get them trained in, but we just never had the funding to do it. So it might be attending a conference, if you're in the transportation industry and there's an annual conference that you'd like to attend, or a trade show that has, speakers that talk about things. The grant would cover the registration fee for those events. It doesn't cover like, your travel or any of your expenses, but it will cover that. If there is online training potentially that you're looking to do, whether it be a one-off or, some companies utilize online training libraries such as, Tooling U or anything to that matter. Those online trainings would be eligible as well. You could work specifically with a training provider to customize training for your area, or even just look online and so the customized training and just like send a group of your employees through training, or you could just send, find training that's already being provided, in the area, or even if your employees have to travel a little bit and just send somebody and hook them up for that.
Kathy,
So it
if I
sounds
could
like,
kind of
Kathy,
weigh
you
in for
might
a
be
second
willing.
on that.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Just to give you an example, Paul, when I worked in human resources at the manufacturers where I've worked, we've used WEDnet funds to offset the cost of safety training for our staff. To offset the cost, we sent receptionists to skill path seminars, day-long skill path seminars for customer service. We sent my HR staff to day-long seminars on updates for legislation that was being changed, COBRA benefits, the new, when Obamacare first came out. So it's really versatile in what you can utilize it for. It just depends on the training needs of your staff. But as Kathy mentioned, if you have a staff member who's looking to move up to that next level, but they need some education or some training to get there, this is an awesome way to get the money back for it.
Right, and that's kind of exactly the case study example that I was talking about, Colleen. So thank you for that. I also think, Kathy, you in the past offered to really, sit one-on-one with any interested company to help them work through these ideas as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So when people think about grants, a lot of times that kind of like frightens them. They think, like pages long of all this information I have to send. I honestly believe that the application process for the WEDnet grant is relatively simple. It's all conducted online. There's a portal there that you can do it. And there are partners across the state that are here to assist you, BC3 being one of them. We pride ourselves on working very closely with companies to help them from the application process all the way through submission of invoices and getting reimbursed. So like Paul said, we'll work with you, provide any information, answer any questions, come sit with you and meet with you, do anything that assist you with any questions that you may have. We're kind of the liaison between the company and then the state office, who, the statewide office is the one who ultimately has, the final approval and decision making. But we will assist you in terms of getting the training plan put together, your invoices submitted and everything else. So when you apply to WEDnet, essentially, like I said, it's done online. And the information you need to provide is pretty much a basic overview of your company: name, address, website address, a couple of sentence description of what the company's business is. You do need to provide the size of the company. So there's like a range, like 1 to 100 employees, 101 to 200 employees, something like that. So they classify you there in terms of your size. You'll need to provide the turnover rate for your company. And essentially the reason that's required is because if you have a turnover rate of 65%, an annual turnover rate of 65%, the state's going to look at that and say, is that really a good investment for us? Because we're going to train Kathy Strobel to come and work at this company. And then there's a pretty good chance Kathy Strobel's not going to be there next year. So that might not be a good investment. That number is, a self-reported number. And I will say that the state is very good at working with companies that may have a higher turnover rate. They realize, especially the last few years, that number is, and in certain industries, that number is higher than many of us would like. So if for some reason your turnover rate is higher than 20%, what I would need to get would be a letter from you kind of just letting us know why your turnover rate is high. Is it competition? Is it wages? Is it, a competitor that just moved into the area and they offered, $50,000 bonuses for everybody. So you lost a few people and they moved over there. What's the reason for it? And then the second part of that letter would be, what are you doing to reduce your turnover rate? And is the training that we're going to be offered a part of that plan? So is this plan, this training that you're looking to apply for funding for, is that part of what you're looking to do? Is that how we're going to reduce that turnover rate? And like I said, the state office, when I have had to submit some of those exception requests in the past, has been very understanding. So that's pretty much the basic information you have to provide about the company. And then the other part of the training, the application process, is providing information about the training that you're looking to conduct. So when you apply for training through this grant, you're going to want to have an idea of the training that you're looking to conduct throughout the year. What's the name of the training? A couple of sentence description about what the training is. So, if you're sending your employees through leadership training, you can say that the participants are going to learn about conflict management, how to conduct performance appraisals, how to motivate their employees, etc. So it's just a couple of sentences about what's being conducted in the training, an idea of your start and your end date, how many employees you're looking to send to the training, and what's the cost. So it's pretty basic information that we want about the training. That training plan is flexible. You can add, change, delete anything throughout the year. But when you apply, you do need to provide us with that, because that's what we're going to look at and say, okay, company ABC, they're requesting $4,000 for this training, and that's a pretty solid training. And if we have the funding available, we're going to look to get you that. Like I said, everything is done online. So right when you apply, all the way through to submitting the invoice, that will all be done online. The only thing that's not done online is once the training is approved, the way it works is the state sends BC3 a check to reimburse you, and then BC3 turns around and cuts a check to your company, so you'll get a check in the mail through us. There is no cost at all for you to attend. For you to participate in this. BC3 does not get a cut or a percentage of your reimbursement. That's built into the state's budget to help compensate us for the work that we do on this. So if you have a training that costs $1,000 and all of that's eligible, you are going to get $1,000 back. You don't lose any of that. Like I said, you can apply at any time throughout the year. We are currently on the grant that we're currently on, this year's grant, the training will end on June 30th. So we're just a little bit more than halfway past through the year. If this is something you're looking to get started, I might suggest that you think about applying for next year's grant, so that this way you have an entire year to utilize the funding and you have some time to get planning and get organized. And we will begin accepting applications for next year's grant on June 1st. Keep in mind when you apply that the eligibility in terms of how often you can participate. So, if you are going to only be able to participate 2 years in a row and then you have to take a year off, you may or may not want to apply this year when there's only 6 months left. You may, it might be better for you to wait until next year. If you've got a big training program coming up that you really want to get your employees into, and obviously a business decision, it's better for them to get trained right now so they can get the work done, then by all means, absolutely contact me for this year and let me know. Even if you are not looking to apply for this year, I would be happy to sit with you now and talk about the grant with you, so that when May and June come and you're putting together this training plan to apply for next year, you're ready to go and you don't have any other questions. So from inception to date, more than 20,000 companies across the Commonwealth have been assisted with this grant, and over 1 million employees trained. The website to get information about the grant is WEDnetPA.com. And that's where you would go also here where it reads apply today. If you are new to the grant and you want to apply, you're going to click on that and you submit what's called an inquiry. That's kind of where you put all your company information, and you will have a list of all the different partners across the state that work to help support this grant. And you can choose to work with any partner that you would like. Also here, it's going to give you the program overview, more information about funding eligibility. So there's lots of information here about the grant at the website. So I suggest if you are interested, just to kind of take a look there. And then I've got my contact information here at the college, as well as my assistant. Jonna works primarily with assisting companies with invoicing. So she's kind of like, once the application has been approved and the training is completed, she's the person who's going to work with you kind of hand in hand and help you to make sure that you get that money reimbursed to you in a quick and timely manner, and as pain-free as possible. So anybody have any questions?
Hi, Kathleen. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, you had mentioned about the marijuana trade not being eligible. Where would industrial hemp fall in all of that?
I mean, my initial gut is probably saying that it's not eligible, but I would never make that determination. Like, I would want to get some information for you specifically about your business and what you do, and I would share that with the statewide director and just confirm with him whether or not it would be eligible.
So that sounds like, well, I don't want to call it a case by case, but that's just like a bridge that kind of haven't been crossed or haven't been talked about.
Not with me, at least. Potentially other companies have, but I have not had that situation yet. So that's why, like I said, I work very hard. There's been, different situations with different companies that, they're kind of like on the fence or on the border, or they're not clear-cut examples of, yes, you're absolutely eligible, you're not eligible, and or maybe your turnover rate's high or low, or for whatever reason. And I work hard to kind of like advocate for my companies and try and get as many companies to be able to participate as possible. So whenever there's a question with eligibility or anything like that, like, I'll get some information from you, share that with the statewide office, and just kind of confirm with them whether or not they would allow it.
Kathy, what are the maximum reimbursement values per employee now?
It's $2,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $100,000 per company.
And is that split anymore between?
No.
So there's no split, that's just a total dollar value
that's
now?
just in general. So all training just falls under that. There used to be two different categories of training. The state did away with that. And so now it's just $2,000 period. So you have $2,000 to spend any way you would like to for that employee. A lot of times companies will ask me, well, how many training classes can I send my employee to? And that really all depends on the cost of the training. If you send your employee to, let's just say like a Microsoft Word class, and that costs $50 for a morning to learn or something like that, then you can send them to more training. You might be able to send them to, 10 trainings throughout the year if they're lesser expensive, or if they're little like lunch and learn seminars that you have to, whatever. Alternatively, if you send somebody to, a GD&T training that is, 40 hours long or something, that could be the entire $2,000 just in one training, So, if you have a longer training and the cost is higher, you would get reimbursed up to that $2,000 amount, and then anything beyond that would be the responsibility of the company. Another thing I'll mention is that if you have an employee that's working towards a degree, their actual enrollment could get reimbursed as well. So like the tuition cost, if there's fees or anything else with the college, that would not be eligible, but the actual tuition costs for classes that are relative to their position. So for example, if I work in your finance department and I'm going to school to get my master's degree in finance or accounting, the coursework that relates directly to finance and accounting would be eligible. If I had to take, English or public speaking or something like that, that would not be eligible I mean, you know, I might be able to make a case for public speaking because that would work towards your, you know, your future as well. You know what I mean? But like something, if you had to take a gym class, if you have employees that are going back for their bachelor's, they have to take a gym class, that's not going to get reimbursed. But the class that's, you know, a leadership class or a marketing class or a finance class, that could be eligible. Many companies are also eligible for in-house training. And in-house training would essentially be like if somebody from your company provided the training to your employees, you could get reimbursed for that employee's salary for the time that they conducted the training. Not everybody who's attending the training, but for example, if Colleen provided training because she's the HR director and she provided training to all of the managers about the types of questions you can and can't ask on an interview, right? Then we would take Colleen's salary and say, okay, you know, Colleen makes $50 an hour and she did training for 4 hours. You're going to get reimbursed, you know, up to $200 for that training to help compensate Colleen. And that includes their benefits as well. So not just like what their hourly rate is, but you're going to add on whatever the benefits are. So benefits are what, 20-30% of an employee's salary. So that kind of can get calculated in as well. So companies are also eligible to do that. The only companies that are not eligible to do that is what WEDnet classifies as a large company. So if you're 500 employees or more, unfortunately, that in-house training component is not available to you. But if you're a smaller company, so smaller than 500, then that would be eligible as well. So, I mean, there are some companies that have, you know, safety managers or training managers or whatever, and they do in-house training. That would be eligible.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, Kathy, because that's exactly what our companies did for a long period of time, was especially for our safety training, because I conducted our monthly safety trainings.
Yep.
It might have been $2 or $3 per employee, but it was a way for us to recoup the cost of me running the trainings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're doing the training anyway, and you're participating in WEDnet, you know, absolutely, you know, you don't get a lot of money back for that, but you're still getting something back. So obviously, I mean, there's an entire packet of program guidelines that kind of go over everything, you know, within the program specifically. And I'd be happy to send that out to anybody. What I have this year is obviously this year's grant, but for the most part, from year to year, things don't change all that drastically. We will likely have the packet of information for next year's grant, maybe in May. They usually send that out end of May, beginning of May, maybe, because people can start participating again in June. We have our annual conference in April, so it won't come out until after, towards the end of April or beginning of May. But I'm happy. I mean, I can send this presentation as well as the company guidelines for right now to send out. And if my contact information is on here, if anybody has any questions about eligibility, questions about the program, please feel free to reach out.
Kathy, you have 2 other questions. Lori Gaitner has one and Brittany Wright has one also.
All right, let me escape here because I still have my. I'm not finding it. I'm not able to get to it. What are the questions?
Okay.
Oh, I just had my hand up and with the icon. Kathleen, could you go one more time over that part where you were talking about if you have 500 employees, it won't count if you're doing in-house. I missed that piece.
Just for the in-house training. So if you're a large company, you can still participate in WEDnet. You can still do, everything. You can work with training providers. You can send your employees out to training. The only thing that large companies that are 500 or more employees are not eligible to do is in-house training. So where one of your employees conducts the training and you get reimbursed for that. That's the only thing that large companies are not eligible for reimbursement on. Now, I will say, yeah. And if you, and I don't know what your situation is, but like, you're going to be determined on your size based on a specific location that has like that specific FEIN number. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you have multiple locations or not. The only thing large companies are excluded from is that on the in-house training.
Okay, thank you. That was clear.
Was there another question?
Brittany?
Yes, my question was also on in-house training. I was just curious if there's any kind of like documentation required for submittal, like any, do the presenters have to be credentialed in any way? Like,
Nope,
no, okay. Okay.
nope, not at
We
all.
just basically summarize what happened and who was there and the timing of everything and the rates and.
Yeah, I mean, all your training plan is going to have the title of the training and that brief description of the training.
Mhm.
You don't have to submit an agenda. You don't have to submit PowerPoints for what you taught, nothing like that. It's just that the title of the training and the description. And then when it comes time for reimbursement, whenever you do reimbursement, when it's time to submit the invoices, you always have to submit the names and job titles of the employees that participated in the training, as well as their social security number. Their social security number does not get uploaded. It stays only on your computer, but then they take it and they create a unique identification number for each employee. And that's what WEDnet and Isaac hold on to and track, because that's how they're going to know that Kathy Strobel has reached her $2,000 cap and is not eligible for any more training this year, right? So when the training is over, if it's in-house training, you're going to submit the names, job titles, and social security numbers of those employees that participated. And then there's also like a little sheet that'll pop up and it'll populate for the person who actually conducted the training. So you're going to put in Colleen Chamberlain. She's the HR director. She makes $50 an hour. The training, or, with health benefits and whatever else, the training was 4 hours, $200 for reimbursement. There was 10 people there. It's $20 per person. We're requesting $200 back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And if it's an external training provider, then essentially what you would submit is the training invoice, the invoice from the training provider. That's, So I guess I can send, like I said, my presentation, then also the company guidelines. I'll send them to Lindsay and maybe she can get them out to everybody who participated today.
Yes, Kathy, I actually did upload your PowerPoint, but if you have anything else,
I can send the other one as well. Absolutely.
I put a link in the chat box for everyone. You can access it all on our website, on our Noontime Knowledge page. And this is recorded, so in a few days, if you want to refer back to this video or share it to someone else, you can also find it on our Fort Lawrence social media and on our Facebook page as well, or on our website page as well. Any last questions?
It's a great grant. There's a lot of information. Obviously, it can sound overwhelming because there's so much information to share, but it's really not. And it's such a great opportunity for companies. And unfortunately, in Lawrence County, we're getting better, but it's a little bit underutilized. So one of our goals is to get it out there and to make folks aware of it so that they can take advantage of this, because companies across the state are. So we want to make sure that you all get a chance to as well.
Well, thank you, Colleen and Kathy, both for speaking today. I think everyone got a lot of great information out of it. And if anyone, for some reason, can't access any of the information, just reach out to our office and we'll make sure you get it. And thank you, everyone, for attending virtually from our offices.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yes, everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, you as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.